Greg, welcome to this Vegan Plant-Based Summit. How are you today?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm very well. And yourself?
Not bad, not bad. Could do with a bit of sun, but apart from that, amazing. So you've got a different story to most people on the summit. They've come from either a health background or an animal rights background, but you have come from an environmental background. So you were 15, you started your long journey as a fine dining chef. Do you want to elaborate on that for me and tell me how you became involved with the environment through food and your passion for fine dining?
Well, I was born into food, really. My mother owned a catering facility where she built and designed industrial restaurants. I think growing up, seeing that passion just started growing inside me very young. So I got into fine dining, got my first ever job at a restaurant called the Journeyman Restaurant in Barrel. And as I progressed, I started looking at animals as products, as how it was displayed to me. And I was looking at the amount of wastage that was coming from it, like a prime cut of salmon, like the first few prime cuts, and then the rest was thrown away. And this really made me start thinking about, the waste of this, and all the people out there that haven't got food, and just that entire process of producing food on this sort of level and the waste that's around it. So that really just kind of provoked my thoughts into what can I do as a chef to make a difference?
You were more interested in making a difference to the environment rather to prevent waste, but also you come from a sustainability angle, don't you? And is there any such thing as sustainability when it comes to eating animals, should we say?
Yeah, so this was like the hypocrisy that I got myself stuck into. So I was when I was quite young, I was working in a restaurant called Biota where we grew everything on the property and served that. And I thought to myself, brilliant, great, how sustainable are we being? And I carried that with pride. But a reality check, there is no such thing as a sustainable restaurant that is serving animal products, like not even the closest amount.
Now, we're led to believe that, we need these animals and that, there's no problem with eating animals in terms of the environment. But I nearly fell off my chair when I realized that it took 22,000 liters of water for 1 kilogram of steak. I mean, what did you find out on your journey through your environmentalism? I mean, that's just one aspect. What else did you find out?
Well, water for me is a really big factor when it comes to like sustainable eating. So for me, it's about like a lot of people say follow the money, but if you follow the water as well. So when you look into how much water that's going into animal products compared to plant-based food, it's astronomical, like you were saying here. But also the waste from the animals, like the sewage, all the cleaning, all the chemicals as well that's used to mass produce animals for food ends up going into reservoirs, ends up going into rivers, ends up going to the ocean. So when we look at the sustainable factor of how much water is being used to grow the food, in the sense of the food that's going to the animals that is then consumed, but also the wastage that goes with having these sort of farms in areas.
Yeah, so in terms of the environment, as a chef, you thought that you were making a difference by making sure that it was sustainable from sustainable sources, and you composting and doing all the things that chefs like to do when they think they're being environmental or environmentally friendly, should we say. But it wasn't really until 2016 when you came to the UK with your then vegan girlfriend that you started to actually question, is this sustainable? Is veganism the right way? Can you just tell us a little bit more about your journey?
So 2016, I came over here with my partner who was vegan. She had just made that connection and she's come over here and she's going, oh, Greg, this is the facts, and I just kept on shrugging her off, going, no, I'm a fine dining chef. This is my career. These are the things. I'm not using cling film. I'm using recycled containers. I'm using less water. I've made sure that I'm composting. I'm recycling. I'm doing my part as an environmentalist. And I started going down this journey, and it wasn't until about 2017 when I was, unfortunately, I was still shrugging off my partner. But it wasn't until 2017 that I read an article about the amount of water that goes into producing animal products. And that's when it clicked. When you look into the big scheme of things, like if we're getting rid of plastic straws, that only makes up a very small percentage of the plastic in the ocean. The majority of the plastic in the ocean is fishing nets. And this all goes back into factory farming and the exploitation of animals for a food system that doesn't make sense.
And as a fine dining chef, you can give us a different angle as to the restaurant industry and how it actually works, and how there's a certain snobbery attached to food and what we eat. I mean, we see this in different cultures, but in the West, we just assume you go to a restaurant and you eat some meat and then maybe have a dessert. But it's not that clear cut, is it? There's a special formula that they use to entice you to eat a certain type of meat, and if you're a certain level. Do you want to elaborate so the viewers at home understand the process?
So when you look into the means of fine dining, there is a big step there. So it's all about the experience from the moment you open that door and you step inside. We've thought about the perfect temperature to be eating food, the style of music that's going to be playing, the way the tables are spread out, how far you're sitting from each person on a table. And these are just the small factors. This is not considering where we get the food, how we process the food, what techniques are we using, what flavor combinations are we using? Have we grown some of these ingredients ourselves, or is it, a close relationship? So when you walk into a fine dining restaurant, there is a food journey, and there is a story behind that food that is sitting on that plate. Just unfortunately, there is a lot of classism in this sort of sense. So there is a lot of for me, in my experience, what I discovered is that I was cooking food on such a level for food that I would personally never purchase myself, knowing the amount of wastage that was there. And it was food that I was cooking for other people that I wouldn't necessarily be able to afford myself. And this created such a large sort of division in the sense of I have all these things, so I have more resources, I have more funding, so I'm allowed to, break the rules. I'm allowed to make more of a wastage. I'm allowed to have a larger carbon footprint. And unfortunately, I just don't see that marrying up with the moralities that we need to have as people in today's society.
So the transition was already starting. You could already see, that things weren't quite right. When did the penny drop? When did you say, okay, veganism the right way to go? Because
well, for me, it was the food link. I always called myself an animal lover, and I always said that I was a sustainable chef, and I personally was making my own changes and my own choices to make a difference and to make a brighter, better world for the future. But it wasn't until I realized that as a person that was making living from selling animals as a commodity, as a person that was pouring my heart and my soul into the food that was damaging oceans, that was damaging lands, that was exploiting animals, putting them through absolute pain and misery. And for me, it just the penny dropped, and I just realized the hypocrisy it was that was within my life. I consider myself to be a person of morality. And when I realized that how I viewed the world and how I was acting wasn't actually coming together, that was the moment that I had put my knife roll down and I kind of walked away from the fine dining industry so that way I could embark on my new journey towards veganism.
So we take it for granted that this is the way life is, and the dairy's everywhere and meat's everywhere. And you're not from the UK or the USA, you're from Australia, from a place called Canberra. What were your experiences as a child living in Canberra with, say, the dairy industry?
So like as I became a vegan chef, I started seeing more and more things line up for me in the means of synchronicity, in the sense of, like you were saying, I had this experience as a child growing up in Canberra at Charles Condor Primary School, where we were taught the Canberra Milk Kids song, and we used to have a helicopter come fly around the school oval. The teachers would let us out to go see the oval, and then the helicopter would land and a giant man dressed as a cow would come out and hand everyone a little bottle of milk. And it was reflection on memories that I have of this growing up, that I realized that, the dairy industry, the slaughter industry, the exploitation of these animals have been ingrained in my upbringing and ingrained in society from the very beginning.
It's interesting that we just don't realize that there's that ideal situation where, as children, our value points, our happy moments are centered in something like a cow getting out of a plane and giving you a bottle of milk. It creates a happy memory. And through our lives, we experience those related to the meat industry, related to the dairy industry. How have you managed to actually take yourself from that mindset and from your fine dining background and marinate it, if you like, with veganism?
So for me, there's a lot of psychology that goes into presenting food to a customer. For example, McDonald's does this very well, in the sense of they give children this song, this narrative that they have created, and they wrap it up in this tiny little gift package box where the child gets to open it. And, they get this cheeseburger and this big shake and a little toy that comes with it. So there's a lot of thought that comes with food to be able to deliver to a customer. And the way that I have married this up, in my sense, is I consider my food to be a sense of activism. So every time I'm on that path and I'm calling these orders and I'm delivering this food. So not only am I delivering plant-based food, I'm also explaining as to why we are making these choices. Why is the better choice to be, not just for your body, not just for the animals, because, that is the most important thing, but also for the environment, because it all kind of goes hand in hand. You can't just be vegan for one thing, because veganism is actually the answer to a lot of issues that we have in today's society.
So when people think about vegan food, they automatically go to a piece of lettuce on a plate, or something really boring, or just stuff that doesn't taste very nice, it doesn't look nice, and it's just lack of thought. But you, as a fine dining chef, you've proven that that's not true. Some of your photos on Instagram are absolutely amazing. Now, where did you start your vegan fine dining journey?
So vegan fine dining for me has always just been a sense of expression, in the means of, I always say this to everyone, how do you make a lamb ragu? Well, use a lamb. And I'm like, okay, how do you make a lamb ragu plant-based? And this is when you start thinking about the flavors and the compositions that come to it. So vegan fine dining, in the sense of making fine dining vegan, has always been there. All the flavor compounds have already been plants. So what I'm doing is I'm taking very few simple flavors and I'm merging them together. And I just swap out the animal proteins. There is nothing that I cannot do vegan. From towards a fast food perspective, like there is so much more that you can just like swap out. For example, a classic steak. If you wanted to swap out a steak, you could grab a lion's mane mushroom, sear it off, and squash that down, and you will be amazed by the texture and the flavor in the mushroom alone.
What would you say to people that go, Greg, that's fine, I understand that, but I don't have the money to eat that sort of thing?
So here is the funniest sort of hypocrisy towards as well. This is also a narrative that's been sold to us. So whenever things start becoming trendy or popular, as someone in the food industry, what I like to do is I like to grab that and I like to resell that back to people. And this is exactly what's happened with veganism. Veganism is on an uprise. It definitely is. So there is a lot of establishments out there that have increased the price of their vegan products simply because it is more popular now. Now, this is a lie. This is such a lie. Like, you can go onto my Instagram and look towards some of the ingredients that I'm using. There is no dish there that has cost me more than £15 to produce for 4 or 5 plates. So when you look at staple foods, we're looking at nuts, grains, pulses, lots of green veggies, all the staples that you have in your house are plant-based, and they are the cheapest things to buy in any supermarket.
So I don't like grains, they're boring, and beans, they make me bloat. That is the answer that I get when I say to people, have you thought about eating more grains and beans? And they say, what? No, it makes me bloat. It's boring. And I don't do tofu.
So I have a beautiful story of a person that I met recently. So I was talking to this lovely person, and this person was saying, but I just can't go vegan because I like milk in my cup of tea just so much. Like, I love an English breakfast. And I was like, okay, let's take this back a little bit. Let's work out why you like this milk. So I started talking about, like, did maybe your mother give you a really milky cup of tea growing up? And like, yeah. I was like, maybe it's like the fat compound towards it. Maybe it's like the thickness of the cow's milk that you're enjoying in your cup of tea. And I started like walking through this journey that this person had in their memories of food, of this cup of tea. And I said, all right, have you got like 5-10 minutes? We'll go down to the shops. So we walked down to the shops, and I point down, I was like, okay, where do you get your milk from? And, this person's pointed down there and said, this is the milk. There was about 4 or 5 different milks there. And I was like, okay, come over here. And I took him to the other side where I had 2 shelves worth of plant milks, right? Going from cashew milk, almond milk, soya milk, oat milk, the different styles of oat milk, the different styles of cashew milk. And then it was pea milk, hemp milk. The list goes on. I had over 20 different types of milks. And it comes back like, oh, yeah, but, beans, they bloat me. There is so much veggies out there that people just haven't explored. And for me, that's almost a sin. Like, there's so much great, tasty things out there just waiting for you to discover. So maybe you don't like, maybe you don't like kidney beans, but maybe there's some other sort of beans there that do take your fancy, that have a good reaction within your body that makes you feel alive.
As meat eaters, or as people that eat processed food, there's very little fiber in the diet. Do you think that when you become vegan, you automatically intake much more fiber, and that's where the bloating actually comes from? Now, fiber has its job, and it's really good for the digestive tract. So if you haven't been eating fiber for forever, it's going to have some form of effect, and maybe bloating is that effect. What do you think?
I think it varies from each person's body personally. So when I had this transition, I just started feeling amazing. Like, once when I officially became vegan, I'm like, that's it. No more animal products. Like, I'm going to stick with my morality. I started getting more energy. I started being more focused. I started having clear trains of thought and mind, and I just felt alive again. Like, I had just woken up. I do understand some people. So when we talk to people, this is something that actually truly does concern me. When we talk to a normal everyday person, they go, oh yeah, I tried vegan for a couple of weeks, didn't really like it. I'm like, okay, what were you eating? And they go, oh, I was having burgers, hot dogs, chips every day. Maybe this is where your problem is. So when you go towards a vegan plant-based lifestyle and not just a diet, this is when you have like a little bit of awakening in the sense of what food does what to your body, and you become a lot more conscious of the foods around you and supplementing things out. The list of this actually goes on. And I've had this experience with people that I've spoken to, trying to encourage them towards, not just a plant-based vegan diet, but also a lifestyle in the sense of like, if you're going to make a change like this with your body, maybe do a little bit of research about food.
There's a lot of controversy around tofu and whether it's good for you, whether it's not good for you. Is it hydrogenated? Is it not hydrogenated? And as a vegan, one of the staples that people go to is tofu. What's your experience with working with tofu, its flavor, its texture, and whether it's actually good for you or not?
There's a lot of fake information out there about the humble soybean. So when they look at on the sustainable issues, oh yeah, but we're deforesting a lot of places to grow soybeans. When you look into this little bit of information, I get this a lot with anti-vegans. Oh yes, but deforestation for soybeans. I'm like, but where are they feeding these soybeans, and who are eating these soybeans? It's a lot of animal agriculture that are purchasing these soybeans and feeding it to the animals. So when you look at that as a sense, if we didn't have the animal agriculture, we wouldn't be growing soybeans in such a destructive way, in that sort of sense. But soybeans are good for you, and they are so tasty. Soybeans itself have almost like a base flavor that can just take on flavors around them. My experience of the humble soybean is from making my own soy milk, from making tofu, sun tofu, silken tofu, even making tempeh. I'm actually just about to launch a collaboration product that I've worked with Club Culture, who make a tempeh, and it's going to be a tempeh ribs where I've fermented soybeans using a mycelium process, and I've got a sugarcane bone emerging out of it. But I've also used different smoke liquids, herbs and spices to bring up those flavors. Now, the soybean really does take on those flavors as well. So this dish itself is going to be absolutely mind-blowing for the people who are against the soybean.
As far as veganism goes, where did you start your fine dining experience in the UK?
The first restaurant that I worked at, that I took on a fully vegan establishment, was California Kitchen in Fitzrovia in London. That was more of a healthy, plant-based style of food. And yeah, so when you talk about vegan fine dining and the diner itself, like we do serve hot dogs and we do serve burgers, but these are very artisan. We have this one dish in particular called the surf and turf, which I used bacon and prawns that we've made, served on a charcoal brioche hot dog bun, completely vegan. And the wow factor that you get when this dish comes out really blows your mind. But on the same side, we also have these tempeh ribs. We also have lion's mane mushroom steaks. And it's the combination of bringing almost fast food and whole food together so that way we can have the audience towards everyone. The mission of Unity Diner is to show people that you can have everything on a plant-based diet. My first establishment that I was working at, California Kitchen, we focused more on a healthy, fast, sexy sort of vibe. So I was making a lot of things like matcha cheesecakes, using cashews to set them with coconut oils. I was also making raw dehydrated kale chips. We also had a month of Rawgist where all the dishes that were coming out of there were completely raw. Now, this concept is still quite very new for a lot of people out there, especially on the plant-based vegan lifestyle side of things. So, the food itself is growing And the more people that become vegan, the more direction that we're going to have towards higher ends. But the more people that become vegan, the less classism that there actually is going to be, in the sense of, you know, the waste or just the smuggery that comes with it. Because once when you walk down a vegan lifestyle, your morality opens up, your heart opens up, and you become more accepting to ideas and possibilities.
You mentioned the word snobbery there, and there's a lot of snobbery that comes with food, as we've discussed. But fine dining vegan food, like the ones you've just mentioned, and diner, they don't seem to go together as a concept. But what sort of customers do you actually get in the restaurant?
We get people from all walks in life. Absolutely everyone. I've seen semi-famous people in here. I've seen young kids come in. We do get a lot of people bringing their non-vegan friends in, which is something that I truly do love, because it brings in that conversation starter that I can have over the past and explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how this all came together. So not only does this person get to have the experience sitting on the past with the chefs, which is a beautiful opportunity, especially in such an educational facility like Unity Diner, but I too love this sort of experience and this conversations that I have, where I get to show the customer why we're doing these things, how we're doing these things, and where all the proceeds are going towards, you know. So I can start showing them, you know, Eric the sheep on the sanctuary, and sort of like, this is what we're funding and this is what we're doing, and these are why we're doing it. So the customers that come in are from all walks of life, but that is what I truly do love about the place, is because when they walk in here, not only are they leaving full and happy, but they're also leaving a little bit more educated on what we can do personally to make a difference for our future.
And I guess they're leaving a little bit more healthier as well, because now they realize that I actually like vegan food and it has to be good for you because it's just plants. And that must get the thought processes rolling, because if you've got sheep with names, then there has to be a reason why you need to detach your feelings and emotions from the meat-eating way of life towards the vegan way of life. And when they come to the diner, they have that opportunity, because Unity Diner is there to enable a sanctuary to exist. Can you tell us more about Surge Sanctuary?
So Surge Sanctuary has recently been launched and opened, and all the proceeds towards Unity Diner does go towards the sanctuary itself. So it took 2 years before we're able to secure some land, and so now we have it. And I tell you what, it is one of the most energizing things that I have ever been a part to accomplish. Surge Sanctuary is also going to be a very mind sort of boggling thing, in the sense of the customers that walk in. We're also just about to launch a different mushroom range and different vegetables and things that we're going to be growing on the sanctuary that I can then bring back to the diner and feed our customers through our menu. So not only do you come and all the proceeds go towards helping animals out there that need a little bit of help, but you're also helping closing that sustainable loop by eating the food that we're producing on the land.
So we talk about animals on the land and Surge Sanctuary, which is absolutely amazing. Now, one of the things that under pivots our society is religion, and a religious custom is Fish Friday. So what does Unity Diner, what do you as a fine dining chef offer as an alternative to the actual fish itself?
One of funny that one of our highest sellers that we have here at Unity Diner is our tofu fish and chips. So it is a grade 5 pressed tofu. And then what we do is we fold different sort of sea vegetables into it. I use nori for the skin. And then we give that a light beer batter. We fry that off, and then that's served with our mushy peas, our chunky tartar sauce, and our chunky fries, dusted with a bit of paprika. And there has, for me as an Australian, I came to the UK thinking, oh, you know, fish and chips, woo. But I have never been so impressed with the fish and chips. Now, I personally never liked any ocean flavors whatsoever, but this meal, this dish that we create is something special. I've never had any sort of negative review or constructive criticism with the toefish. So when it comes to sort of religious practices and things like that, we've always got a staple. We've always got something to swap in and swap out that we can do to still make you feel connected in the sense of spirituality, but also have your spirituality align with your morality, so that way you can still live a vegan and plant-based lifestyle. Last year, towards Christmas, I did a mushroom meaty Wellington with a miso mushroom gravy, your roast veggies and your roast potatoes. So you still got to have your roast dinner around Christmas time with your friends and family on the table, and not harm an animal, and still make a conscious move towards a sustainable and brighter future.
If you had a takeaway for people on how to transition, what food to start with, what would it be?
So what food would I recommend for someone who just went vegan? Oh, there's this comes back to just a lack of creativity for me. This is just me being a little bit egotistical as a chef, but there's just so many products out there, so many different types of vegan bacon, for example. It's like, but I've just gone vegan, but bacon. We have way more different types of bacon. So I've made aubergine bacon, banana skin bacon. Then you have like the mock meat bacon, soya bacon. You can use seitan bacon. The list goes on. So I think for me, for someone who's like having a transition process, I think the first steps there that I would recommend is swap out your milks, ditch eggs, and then start looking towards, is it pork that you really like? Are you really into pork? Maybe try an omni pork substitute. Are you missing fish? Are you like, oh, but I can't go vegan because I love fish so much. Have you ever tried sea vegetables? The flavor that you can get from kelp, sea moss, nori, is all where the fish themselves essentially get the flavors from eating these sea vegetables, from eating these sea plants. And it's like, oh, but I love a beef lasagna or something. Well, you can very simply swap that out with like mushrooms and walnuts. You can blend that together to make a mince. And not only is that better for the environment, it's better for your health, and it tastes better. Completely tastes better in every little sense. It makes you feel good. The list goes on. And that's not even stepping towards whole foods. These are just products. If it's burgers that is your favorite food, the amount of vegan burger shops in London alone is insane. It's growing every day by the minute.
That's amazing that it's actually growing on the high street. For people that are already vegan, that are fed up with their own recipes, or they're fed up with the recipes that they find online, it's always the same thing. Where would you tell them to look for inspiration?
For me, I find a lot of inspiration from things around me. So, for example, there's an amazing chef called Derek Sano who works with Wicked Food. He gives me a lot of inspiration on mushroom cooking. And for me, what I try and do is I look at what other chefs are doing within the industry, whether if it's with animal products or not with animal products. And then I go, I wonder if I can make that vegan. And then I just try and swap things out and try all sorts of different styles, just because it's, I'm on a vegan plant-based lifestyle doesn't necessarily mean that I can't pick up a non-vegan recipe and veganize it. So for me, that's where I draw my creativity. I also like to draw a lot of creativity from things that are going on around the world. Just walking through the high streets and, looking at all the fresh fruit and vegetables and picking things up and touching it with my hands and going, oh, let the creativity flow.
Whether we're able to draw or not, or paint or not, we all have a creative side to us. So basically what you're saying is get creative with your food. Now, one of the things that meat eaters say about vegans is, always have to announce that they're vegan. They always have to announce that they can't eat this, that, and the other. What's the reason for that, do you think?
I think a lot of these industries have got a very big strength and power in marketing. So when I grew up, there was I think it's the sister company to Burger King. So we called it Hungry Jack's in Australia growing up. And their slogan was, the burgers are better at Hungry Jack's. And growing up hearing this all the time, it just kind of makes you think, oh, why would I get a burger anyone else? You know, like this, it's already the best. But yeah, for me, it's a lack of creativity. You know, having food waste, for example, is a lack of creativity. You know, all your peelings that you have from your broccoli or even your broccoli stem, to throw that away, for me, is a lack of creativity. There's so much more that you can be doing with the things around you for a sustainable aspect, but also in a taste aspect. There's so many different parts. For example, like a globe artichoke, steaming the stem and eating that and peeling that back gives the texture and the feel and almost the flavor of calamari. So doing that, I wouldn't have looked into harder palm if I wasn't like, I wonder what this tastes like. So it's about experimenting and with food. And if you want to lead in the sense of food, you really have to push those boundaries. And push those boundaries with food. And I'll tell you what, as a fine dining chef, I've made a lot of different types of styles of food and lots of different supplements, and I've placed things out. You know, I've used a lot of whole food menus. But I tell you what, I've also made some horrible, disgusting mistakes along the way. You know, like, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you're just like, these things don't work out. And that's fine. That is absolutely fine. But from that, what you need to do is be a little bit constructive with yourself. Say, maybe this worked, maybe this didn't work, and put those things together and see what you get, and see what you can make from that.
So, Greg, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you today. Thank you for being part of this Vegan Plant-Based Summit, and we wish you all the well with your fine dining endeavours.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to hearing about how many more people have chosen to take up a vegan, sustainable, plant-based lifestyle.